Remember, we've had this discussion several times.
I just watched it happen.
Okay.
What goes through your mind when we say that?
It's not that serious.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book 91. We are discussing Family or Fiance episode 6 season 2. Yes. If you haven't watched our last review, it was another powerful session around the episode. And we've got another powerful session today. I'm joined by someone else this particular episode. If you watched episode 5, then you already know who's in episode 6. But before I introduce my lovely guest, first and foremost, let's do some house rules. Like, share, subscribe, and click on that bell button. Why? Because then you get a notification of what? The uploads of this channel. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know the motto. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Listen, stay hydrated out there because the streets are what? They're hot with a H-A-A-T, okay? All right, that's how hot it is. We left the O's behind. All right, cool. So, we are gonna kick off the show, but I'm gonna bring on my lovely guest. Let me make this very, very clear. My lovely guest, inspirational guru. How you doing, sis?
Hey, Brian.
I'm good, man. I'm good, and I'm good. So, we got episode 6. Now, it's a very powerful episode. What was your thoughts?
Whew. My thoughts at the beginning was, I'll be honest, I was just like, she shouldn't be with this guy. And she really needs to, again, love herself, because you could see there was a lot of lack of self-love and she's looking for it through him. When she explained how her previous relationships didn't work. And based on that, what she was getting in this relationship, and then she was holding on to how it started, which is the love bombing. So she's holding on to the hope of him returning to that person. And it's been how many years? 6
Fight for their time. And Fred wanted to give me all of his time.
years. And it's like she's trapped. Especially when she was explaining how they got engaged, you could tell she's trapped. It's really, she needs to get out and be free, but she needs to love herself and not be afraid to start over. I could tell that was what her fear was. She's afraid of starting over. She doesn't believe that she could find love again after him. And that fear is what keeps many women trapped in something they should not stay
in the bondage. Yes.
Yeah, she's being manipulated and emotionally abused. So these are things I picked up.
It's tight because I think obviously you're right. I think she got sucked in and stuck on, the drinking aspect. She got stuck on the beginning of the relationship, how, it was a beautiful fairy tale. She said she went for different types of men who were, didn't really give her the time of day. And then finally she finds somebody who wants to give her all the time of day. And it starts off really well. And then it just starts to plummet and bomb.
In the beginning, Fred was giving me all the attention. And I felt like because I was getting that attention that there were no other females. But that's not the case. So from an early point in our relationship, the trust has already been...
A lot of these episodes, there is cheating in most of these episodes at the early stages. And it's like people are seeing this and they're not doing anything about it. And then we're having a course of similar events. Now, listen, I always say this. There are always exceptions to rules, and I'm sure someone's going to point out their granddad who also did the exact same thing, and now they're happily ever married, happily ever after with their grandma. But can we just be very frank now and start being very responsible, okay? Most people who do this in the very early stages of this are not recovering.
For about 6 or 7 months.
Okay.
And I knew it was going on because the signs were there, the text messages were there, and he made me feel like I was absolutely...
Okay, because actually I always say this, it takes roughly between 6 to 18 to 24 months to recover from a broken heart when someone cheats on you. That's not including the work that the person who cheated on you has to do themselves in order to get themselves back into shape in the fact that they've broken your trust. And then you want to go back, continue onwards with a broken arm without actually putting a cast around that broken arm and act as if the arm is not going to be dysfunctional. This is where relationships are breaking down. It's like the early warning signs have been shattered. Forget them. They're not even signs anymore. It is in your face. The doo-doo is right there, and we've got to deal with it. But that really does speak to the fact that if people are seeing this and not doing anything about it, you are used to it. There is almost, you've always surrendered yourself that this is a normal behavior and I have to surrender myself to this and accept this type of relationship. I don't know if you want to add on to that, Inspirational Guru.
I definitely do. And something so important you said is, at the beginning, these red flags always show. I say I do not care what anybody, especially women, my fellow women, want to tell me. Oh, he changed one day. No, he didn't, sis. You saw the red flags at the beginning, but you ignored them because you were so focused on the love bombing you were receiving. You let the good times, which were probably very minimal, outweigh the bad times when the bad times outweighing the good things. In addition to that, you saw the red flags and you thought you could love the red flags out of that person. And that seems like what's exactly happened here. Many of us make that mistake, not just women, but men as well. All of us make that mistake. I've made that mistake, and don't want to make this about me, but I've been in a situation in my past where I saw the red flag. When I say God, okay, intuition is a beautiful gift God gave to women, especially, okay? God showed me every sign, pim, as to why I should not go there. Literally screaming, don't go there, don't go there. But maybe if I love him a certain way, maybe if I show him this way, maybe if I play ride or die chick, or maybe if I, hold him down regardless of his PTSD in this situation, maybe if I love him through the drinking and maybe try and be his healer and be his savior, he will respect me. The red flags were showing, that's probably what was going through her mind, because the red flags were screaming at the beginning. That she said it herself, there were infidelities, and she explained the cheating, and he was dismissive. He was like, well, I have to be, just me doing that. And when the relationship coach asked him, do you see that as cheating? He said no. But the red flags were there from the beginning. But as she said, and this happens to a lot of people, okay? She was love bombed. He was giving her something that she hadn't seen in her previous relationships. She said she used to have to fight for the time of the men that she dated
Fight for their time. And Fred wanted to give me all of his time.
previously. So she came across a man who is giving her that, what she was missing, and love bombed her, was like the perfect, like the prince in shining armor. And then once that mask started to fall off, instead of her to run, she thought maybe I could love him through it. Maybe he'll go back to that knight in shining armor that I had in the first place. And she's holding so much onto that illusion that she's willing to take anything, and it keeps getting worse. Yeah. But the thing is, she thought she could love the red flags of him, and it's backfired.
That's a whole word in itself, man. I love that that people want to love the red flags of them. I love that. And you're absolutely right. I think just watching her interactions with him, she even had to. She's even, we started to realize, and I think this happens to a lot of people when they get in certain relationships where they're trying to play savior. You're doing anything and everything you can to try and save this person, even to a point where you're now dulling yourself, right? Because there was a scene where they were having their little date, and where she almost basically shut down. Where
never mind. No, not never mind. I have to stop doing that.
He was where she had tried to bring up a point about the drinking, and then he kind of said something back to her, and she was like, oh. And she was like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. And then she had to ginger herself to get up again and say something. But just in between that part, she actually said, oh, this is what I'm talking about. Anytime I bring something to you, this is how you behave. Da, 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 da. And you start to realize now, you start to go from this to becoming this very small person in the equation, because like I said, the walls begin to close in and you start to feel like you can't be expansive. You actually go the opposite way. You begin to retract, and when you start to find that realize that you yourself are beginning to retract and you're not expanding. Remember the second law of thermodynamics. Okay, everything comes to an end, and everything goes into a negative phase, right? But everything expands. So if you're now going the opposite direction, my friend, this probably isn't the right relationship, because even the universe is still expanding. How more you are not expanding, you're not growing, you're not showing more maturity and more emotional intelligence as you're going through your relationship and learning your partner more. Why is it you're retracting? Why is it your light is dimming? Why is it that your life is not glowing, but it's beginning to dim? That should let you be the indication that you are not in the right place, right? That this light now is underneath the bushel, and it's underneath another bushel, and underneath another bushel. Like, your light is not getting no room to shine at all. And I say that in the sense of the fact that she has tried to save him. She's tried to cover him. And I think just during this episode, what was so profound about it wasn't Tiffany herself. It was the support around them. Because there was nobody, apart from maybe the mum a little bit of him, but nobody was here to play and enable you. All right? Everybody was like, no. Like, big man, what we're seeing is not conducive to being a healthy relationship. And I think that again is, and I'm bringing this out because this is very rare that we see this on this show. If you've watched the whole first season, there were so many episodes, you rarely see the family really, apart from maybe one side. Maybe the one side sees their daughter or their suffering, and then they say something. But to have both sides saying the exact same thing, that they're looking at this couple and they're able to identify that this is not going well, this is not it, and this is not what we see for you two, is absolutely huge. And actually probably saved Tiffany from being hurt emotionally even more. Because it's like you're getting constant wake-up calls from everybody around you on both sides. What was your thoughts to that inspirational group?
That one was a big one. The fact that nobody supported. However, there was a stage where his mother almost enabled him. And why this is, and I love the fact that his girlfriend, fiance, called her out on it. This is actually something that's pretty big. And I think this needs to be addressed in this. In the last episode, we spoke about daddy issues. We need to talk about mother enablers for mummy's boys. Reason why I say mama-boy relationships are extremely dangerous is because sometimes, and this can come from either single motherhood or even just mothers who just are enablers of their boys, okay? Sometimes the mothers do act like their sons are their own husbands.
Hey.
And why I say this is because no matter what he does wrong, these mothers will cover him and protect him. Yes, that's your son, and you need to protect him from attack. And obviously, yes, your motherly instincts would immediately want to cover your child. That's okay. That's absolutely understandable. But when your motherly instincts want to cover your child, especially when your child is clearly wrong, that's where it becomes a problem. We're not.
Hey, Mama.
It's all right.
This is old stuff.
Don't worry about it. Everybody was coming at Frederick. I am his supporter. I'm his mom, so.
Saying that you shouldn't cover your child. All mothers, that's how mothers are built. We're built to protect what's ours, to protect, cover the home, make sure the home's, you know what I mean? But where there are mothers who, no matter how bad their sons are, even when their sons are doing the wrong, they still cover his tracks and make excuses for his behavior. And this is what the mother was doing. And that can be very toxic, because that means he's grown up being used to not being held accountable.
Yes.
And we could see that happen there, because the mother was enabling him, saying, y'all are attacking him. No one was attacking him. They're telling him the truth about how toxic his actions are and how dangerous they are and what work he needs to do. By you not holding your son accountable, of course he's dismissive. Now we can see why he acts that way. Yes, he's dismissive because he's not used to being called out for what he does. He's used to being enabled to continue doing what he does. And that's why I say sometimes mama's boys can be a red flag in a relationship, because those type of relationships, it could be, there are some good mama's boys that mothers are amazing to their sons and they grew to love their daughter-in-law or the girlfriend, but there's also some toxic mum's boys relationships where my son can do no wrong. He is not a liar. He's not all of the denial of who her son is. She still has this picture of him as a baby that she was cradling, not who he is today.
Yeah.
So that part was very key there, because they now had to call her out and say, you're an enabler.
Yeah.
And because you're enabling him, he's dismissive because he's not used to being held accountable. He's used to being allowed to act the way he's acting. But then it looks like his mother later on came to her senses and realized, okay, this is a problem, because his own friends and his own brother had to say, like, you need to, this isn't cool. You need to change. You can't marry her in your life.
But what I'm saying is, a lot of times we hurt the ones who love us the most.
Right. Can I say something, please?
Go ahead,
Yes.
Yeah. So I found that powerful. Obviously, there was a dangerous part of the mummy enabler, because there's mummy enabling relationships, mama's boy enablers, I call it. But later on, it's like the whole of them, both sides came together and said, we need her to wake up. This isn't good. He needs to change. She needs to let go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love what you said about the mom's boy. And what's really interesting is the fact that something obviously happened because the other brother is not the same. So it's one. So the other brother is able to analyze critically and see that, oh, this is behavior that's not correct. He's called out his brother on one or two occasions, you know, and that's...
You want him to do.
He needs to find out what he needs to do.
Right.
You know you have a problem, find a way to fix it.
But a lot of times, and I'm
Not just him, the friend too also had the courage to pull him up and say, bro, this ain't it. Like, the behavior you're exhibiting is not it. And I love what you drew that when you made that clear for the audience as well, by saying how because of the mum's coddling, it's made him become dismissive when it comes to hard conversations. More than likely because the mum, when it came to hard things that she had to explain to him, she's let him off the hook. You know, and this is where consequences to actions are important. You have to give children this and make them understand. It's not every time you can say, you know, it's okay. No, there's a punishment now. There is a punishment. There's a consequence to your action. It's not just okay because you've told me now I didn't mean to do it. It's fine. You didn't mean to do it, and that's fine. I've got no problem with that. But there's still a consequence. Because if I don't teach you that, you're thinking you can go into the world, and when you say sorry, that's the end of the conversation. No, there are consequences to your actions. That sorry cannot stop the ball rolling. And I think that's what we saw from him. You want to jump in? Go for it. You want to jump in?
That's exactly what we saw from him. That, you know, there's not consequences for his actions at all. That maybe if he just says, oh, I love you, I'm sorry, that will be it. Everything will go back to normal, because we saw him later on do that. You know, hug her and, you know, do the sweet talking and the buttering up and then say, I'm sorry. But hey, I'm sorry is okay, cool, but that's not enough. I want to see the change. Yeah. But he thought that the sorry would be the only thing to convince. And then even at the end, We'll go more into detail about that later, but even what his action at the end, his manipulation tactic, is like, well, if I do this, it'll just cover over everything.
Overnight, but your heart can. My mind and my soul. Can we reset?
If I do this, it'll just butter over everything. Everything will be okay. No problems.
You hit the nail on the head. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head by saying, especially that end scene, that I think that encapsulates just how far gone he is. Like, I'm not saying he's lost, but I'm saying how far gone he is. That, and I think I was listening to something. I listened to an Audible book, and we're talking about the author was it's Art of Seduction, and the author was talking about women that have been pampered when they're young. This confidence that stays with them forever. It's done. There is no coming back. You can't shatter their confidence. They're gonna always want to be pampered because that's all they've known from young, right? And this is the unfortunate truth that somebody who has been pampered and coddled in consequences from young is going to struggle to turn the Titanic all the way around before hitting icebergs. It's gonna be very difficult to stop that. Right? More than likely, it's going the same direction. Before he turns that ship, it's hitting the iceberg and it's collapsing into the sea. And so, what am I saying? I'm not saying he's lost, but what I am saying, he needs an intervention quick, fast, right? Because he's already dragging this girl down, right? Because he's unable to be self-aware. Now, I am not excited when he showed a little bit of self-awareness. I wasn't excited. Why? Because change of action is what I want to see. That's what excites me. Your change of action by plan. You saying certain things didn't get me excited. For instance, saying when we get back, I'm gonna get into therapy. Okay, that's great. I need to see it. Right? Before you can get down on your knee and now begin to propose again, I need to see that action happening. Right? And if she and this is where Tiffany comes in to hold a firm boundary. I hope her name's Tiffany. I don't know why I've got Tiffany in there, but I hope it's Tiffany. Anyway, this is where she comes in, because she has to hold a firm boundary and say to him, you've said this is the plan, you're going to go to therapy, you're going to do X, you're going to do Y, you're going to do Z.
What really, really got to me, and I'm just completely bothered at this moment now.
If I don't see X, Y, and Z, I'm out. Now, she said that at the end, but how true is those words? Because I thought you should have been out before this point. As soon as he got down on one knee, you should have been like, are you okay? When we already discussed, we're postponing the wedding and you're still wanting to propose. Right? So, again, you're absolutely right. This is him, again, trying to pave over the cracks because that's what he knows. Right? You sweeten the deal. And this is it's actually a self-defense mechanism where when someone makes a mistake, what they try to do is sweeten the deal. But the trouble with this point is that you're doing it all the time. There's only so many times you can do that to sweeten a deal, to make the person feel like you actually bring in a retribution towards what you're doing. So all I'm seeing is him going into deficit after deficit after deficit emotionally. And if she doesn't set an effective boundary, she's going down with him. Because he's suffering with PTSD. It's a problem already as it is. You know, go for it.
Yeah, I think that, okay, so, you know, he has a case of PTSD, which he refused to get help for. And that's a problem on his side. Him refusing to do the work himself is bleeding onto her. And then she's now thinking she can save him, but she can't save him. He needs to save himself first, you know? So the PTSD, him not wanting to get help, him drinking alcohol, mom will think she really should have left a long time ago, okay? Because the dismissiveness, the infidelity, the emotional abuse, because when we need to pay attention to the emotional abuse, she said that each time she had a feeling and brought it up, he made her out like she was the one that was crazy. Mm-hmm. So she's being emotionally abused, not just by his PTSD, but his infidelity, his not wanting to take accountability. It's messing with her emotionally and it's breaking her down. So she's like, as we saw, a victim of emotional abuse, and she allowed him use that a manipulation tactic to continue the emotional abuse at the end. When she said, we're postponing the wedding, there's no date. He now says, I want to start again. In other words,
a reset.
Again as, forget about everything, here's a new ring.
So this is to resetting. This is to me being committed to being a better person and a better person to you. You don't change overnight, but your heart can.
Chris and Paige all over again.
But really and truly, again, like that's where you said she doesn't know how to set boundaries. I could tell she had a boundary issue because in front of everyone, again, remember at the end, there's something that's important. I see two ties here. So at the end, in front of everyone, he brings out another ring. She didn't set the boundary. She may have felt backed into a corner. This is the manipulation technique. At the beginning, she did say that she was on a trip with him and he brings out a ring and proposes to her. And she felt like she had no choice but to say yes, because she would have had to deal with, it was the first night of their trip and they had a whole week. So
that was the very first night of our trip. And so if I said no, we have an entire week to spend.
So did you feel like you had a choice?
It's not because she wanted to, it's because she felt like she had to, and she didn't want to have to deal with, oh, what if there's a messed up trip? This is the first night. So it's like she was backed up in the corner. That was the beginning. Then he comes back at the end and says, I want to start again from the beginning by backing her again into a wall, because this time both their families are in present. So she's thinking, I may just have to say yes and take this ring because I don't want to embarrass him in front of his family. So again, her boundary issue. She failed to set the boundaries at the beginning where she was like, okay, I'm not ready to say yes yet. Let's enjoy our trip. Let's give it time. And then at the end, she failed again. Listen, I just said we have no date on the wedding. I want you, before this ring goes on my finger, I'm not accepting it. Before this ring goes on my finger, everything you said you want to do, the therapy, the go to some AA meetings to stop your alcoholism, do your healing, work on yourself. Everything you said you're going to do, you're going to do it first. But until then, there's no ring on my finger. And I think it's best we're not together because I need to heal myself. Because after all, he's bled on her and he's broken her down. So this is the time she could have said, no, we need to separate and focus on ourselves before this ring goes on my finger. But again, she ended up back to square one, where she allowed herself be backed up against the wall the same way he did when he asked her to marry him.
That was scintillating. I love the way you brought that back round. As you said it then hit me, and I was like, yeah, she's gone there. You're actually right. Yeah, the end is actually the beginning. It's biblical. The way it's come back around, cyclical like that, because you're absolutely right. She was backed into a corner, and I didn't even see that until you said it. That is that same position that she finds herself in as well. And actually, what it does, I'm trying to not be too symbolic, but we have 3 days to get this sorted, right? They have 3 days to get this sorted. I'm just saying, and it's as if she hasn't learned in those 3 days. So the old her hasn't died; it's still alive. It wasn't nailed to the cross, wasn't dead. And it certainly isn't resurrected. It's the same person, same old man that's within this young lady. And unfortunately, and I think the focus was so much on his behavior, we forgot the fact that she also too allowed him space to maneuver. That now when we get to the end, it's almost like it's too late. It's like, oh, snap, she's got problems too. We've got to sort her out as well. And I think that ending there just kind of highlights where sometimes what people want to focus on is you've done me dirty, and not realizing there is work on this side that needs to be done as well. It's not just the other person who may be moving mad and doing whatever they're doing, but you also have to make sure, why did I allow some of this behaviors to go on for so long? And I think you pointed out an absolute beautiful point that, and her brother was so angry. Her brother was like, this is so stupid. Why is he getting on one knee? And he said he was more frustrated with her because of what they already just discussed about the 3 days. So what was she doing in those 3 days? What she was looking for was what a lot of people are looking for, is a shortcut.
Just because there's a lot of stuff that's about to come out. In the beginning, Fred was giving me all the attention. And I felt like because I was getting that attention that there were...
At the end, what she really wanted was the promise ticket that, hey, I just want that quick change. If you promise it to me, I'm willing to take it. Rather than actually being patient and saying, this is a long journey, I need to see it. I need to see it, and that may mean I may not get it. Because what's happened is a lot of people don't want to take short-term pain, they don't want to take short-term pain, right, to have the long-term success. They'd rather cut that pain but then enjoy long-term pain. It's like you are killing yourself unknowingly by short-circuiting the process and trying to jump particular procedures and things that should get you to that stage, just because you don't want to feel the pain right now. And you don't, and actually what it is that you are seduced by the lie, and this is where Adam and Eve also comes in. Eve was seduced by her own desire. This is what people don't realize. Satan was doing his thing, yeah, but he knew that he's speaking to her desires, and her desire itself caused her to move, which is where James tells us that, listen, before you start thinking about someone else, just remember, the thing that's trying to get you is because there is something in you that is liking that thing. So whenever you're in this situation, you may see this young lady with this young man and think to yourself, oh man, I can't believe she's in that situation. You want to look at yourself and say, is there something in me that if I'm in a situation, they're going to be able to draw upon and be able to keep me locked down because I haven't focused on what I need to focus on, which is me, making sure that I'm the most healthiest I can be. Because you're right, it was a shame to see her at the very end, after 3 days, that she was in the exact same position she came into. In fact, I think she's even a worse off position because she came to be helped and returned back to her sick and returned back to the same place she was in.
Yes, exactly. And the key words here is number one, accountability. And number two, this is a term called the path of least resistance.
Oh,
now, the path of least resistance is people with a lack of self-discipline tend to take that. The path of least resistance and not wanting an instant gratification. What you just explained in those 3 days, she wanted a shortcut. She wanted instant gratification. She's not willing to go through the season of delayed gratification. So she took the path of least resistance, which is going to lead to further destruction. Now, for those who don't understand what the path of least resistance is, and this is me going in with my coaching hat on, the path of least resistance is you don't want to go through. So I'll use the process, and oh my God, I'm about to expose myself a little here. In law school. Path of least resistance is when I was in the bar, they gave us 12 exams that we have to sit. I don't like exams, okay? And there was one exam called civil litigation. Civil litigation is the hardest exam any barrister has to sit, okay? Now, they give us a big white book. It's a big book. It's this thick, right? It's so thick. It's like over 2,000 pages. And the paper is as thin as Bible paper. You know how thin Bible paper is. And the writing is so small, you probably have to use a magnifying glass to read it. Now, that book, you need that book to study and pass the exam, okay? But what people like myself was doing is because I hated the book and how long the process was going to take me to study using that book, I took the path of least resistance and was looking for easier options to study with. So I went getting certain other textbooks, and those textbooks, funny enough, are referring me back to that same white book. I used to go back to the same white book, read this section, but I refuse. I said, I refuse. Let me find another way. Now I'm going to ask you, the pass rate for the exam the first time, the pass rate in the bar is hard, is 60%. I'm going to ask you, do you think I passed that exam? No. Now, the pass rate is 60%. I got 59. And again, that's because I was looking for all the other shortcuts, little textbooks, because I wanted to avoid the key book. It took me to now check myself that, yes, I was in the libraries from 9 a.m. till 11 p.m. at night, but I wasn't reading the key book that I needed to pass. I was so busy trying to take shortcuts. I was taking the path of least resistance. I wanted the instant gratification. I wasn't willing to go through delayed gratification. So this applies, and that's because of my lack of self-discipline and my lack of patience, which is a form of self-discipline. So that's also what's happening here. She wanted to take the path of least resistance, hoping that in those 3 days, he will be fixed, but she's refusing to fix herself. Okay? Obviously, that's not going to happen in 3 days. So because of that, instead of her to now set the boundaries and say, you know what, I'm willing to go through a season of delayed gratification. I'm willing to, to go through this season of delayed gratification so that this can be done the right way. She wanted that instant gratification of having the ring and being engaged, despite all the red flags that were flashing at her. And a lot of us make that mistake, not even just in relationships, with our lives. We just want the instant gratification. We're not willing to go through the sacrifice or delayed gratification, and we end up reaching a destination of total destruction. Okay? And that's exactly what's happened here. Then we go into accountability. So she chose to take the path of least resistance. I don't want to go through that long process of the therapy, and let's just, I don't want to go through that long process of having to let go of this relationship and start again and heal myself and learn to love myself again. I don't want to have to go through the hard process of starting again, relearning myself, reloving myself, totally starting all over again. I don't want to go through that season of delayed gratification. I want the instant gratification of saying I'm married. I want the instant gratification of saying I have a man. I want the instant gratification of saying, I'm engaged, yeah, I got a ring on my finger. I just want it now. So I'm not willing to go through the season of delayed gratification, which could lead to my blessing and my destiny and my purpose the right way. So I'm going to take the path of least resistance, even if it means me ending up in destruction, which is always the result of path of least resistance. You heard my story of failing exam, and I have to go back and sit that thing again, okay? Right. Then accountability. it's on her as well. Yes, he has the PTSD. Yes, he had the drinker. But like I said at the beginning, you think you can love the red flags of someone. She thought she could love the red flags of this guy. She wants to be his savior. She doesn't want to, like I said, go through the path of least resistance. She wants the instant gratification. So because of that, she's failing to set boundaries. She's failing to put herself first. That's where she went wrong. And she's also an enabler. Yes, we spoke about the mother enabling him, and she checked his mother for enabling him. But sis, queen, you've enabled him too. So he's continued, and that's why he got down on his knee and manipulated you again, because you've enabled it for
that was sweet, sis. That was sweet, because that was a word. Especially about when you explain about the path of least resistance. You're absolutely right. I mean, to be honest, so thank you for saying that. So yeah, I love the fact that, I think, just talking about this, because both parties have something that need to be worked on, and I love the fact that if anyone's watching this, I want them to see that both parties need some help. Like it can't be looked at as one person did this. If you don't look at both parties, you actually do yourself a disservice to see that there's areas of improvement on both parts. I think obviously watching, I understand. Do you know what it was as well? There was another interesting thing that happened when they asked him about cheating. He said once, and then they said once. He said, "Oh, okay, 3 times."
One time.
No, it was with one girl. One time. It was with one girl. Let's tell the truth.
How many times? Probably 3.
It probably wasn't even 3. Sir, like, you cannot be trusted with the truth, right? And at that point, you are a danger to everybody around you, in a romantic sense, because you are not willing to be open and honest about your behavior. You already pointed this out as well, Inspirational Guru, that earlier on, he didn't even want to admit it was cheating. It was I was entertaining girls. So we've gone from cheating to entertaining girls, or from entertaining girls to cheating. Whichever way you look at it, sir, you're not being honest with yourself. And that is scary, because you're not able to take account for your actions. That will always leave the other person feeling shortchanged, because whenever there's a situation that comes up, you won't apologize unless it suits you, unless it's needed to manipulate that person, or unless it's absolutely, and even then, even if it's crazy, you probably still won't apologize, because you will say there's some fault that the other person has, which is where the gaslighting was coming in for the cheating. And then you start to build up a picture of somebody who now has taken their trauma and used it as a wielded weapon to finish you off. You have now become the punching bag for that person. You have now become the enemy. And and the thing that's scary about it's wrapped in this idea of love. So what you don't realize is you're in a cocoon, and this person here has trapped you in this world that makes you feel like I'm loved by this person, when really you've just become the enemy that he was with overseas with. You are no different to them. You are Mark now, right? Because he's acting in the complex of his mind. He's not been freed from the PTSD he's suffering from. He's not been freed from the lack of accountability. His mum that coddled him didn't help either. So now you're in a position where past and the past of your childhood and the past of your adulthood are now crashing and colliding together. And guess what, sis? You are the earth, and the meteoroid has come straight to crash where you are. Go for Inspirational Guru.
Exactly. And this is that I love the fact that you pointed that out, because that was really such a key thing. And especially at the end, the fact that every single family member, I think this was the second time.
First second time. Yeah, you're right.
I'll say it's the first time, actually, because this one, everybody said, "You will not have my blessing." Even his mother, who seemed to like him a bit, said, "Mm-mm." And that alone should have made herself say, "All right, this is a big problem. Besides my own family, but his family, this is a big problem." But again, it brings it down to the fear, and I want to talk about the fear of loneliness.
Go for it.
The fear of loneliness is so dangerous, because the fear of loneliness. One thing about fear, we say, false evidence appearing real, and forget everything and run. But fear also means face everything and rise as well. FEA, face everything and rise, because the fear of loneliness is due to the lack of, again, knowing who you are and the lack of self-love and self-esteem. And fear is a very paralyzing spirit. Fear can cause people to fall ill. Fear, it lowers your immune system, and as a result attracts sicknesses because your immune system's down. This is how powerful fear is. And fear is only as powerful as you allow it to be at the same time. So yes, I've said fear is powerful, but I said it's only as powerful as you allow it to be. Because again, the fear of I don't want to be alone is you don't love yourself enough to know that it's okay to be by yourself for a while, so that space could be made for the right people to come into your life. But instead they see the fear of loneliness of, oh, I need to have somebody there to validate me. And this all amounts to the lack of self-love. You feel to seek validation elsewhere than within and through God. That's the only person you need to seek the validation from, because that's your creator. And God lives within you. So this is why I say within. You're not wanting to seek the validation from within yourself, but you want to seek it in everyone else. And that's why you end up stuck in these situations. Oh, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. And I hate this one. It gets on my nerves, honestly, is I don't have time to start again. Pardon? You don't have time to start over, but you're unhappy. You're miserable. You're in pain. So because you don't have time to start over clean, where you're free, you set yourself free from that. You want to stay in something that's eating you inside and destroying you? Make it make sense. So that's why I say that fear of loneliness is a lie. It's an illusion. And it's something that's being kept there. It's kept so many people. Again, you brought up the thing of, oh, my grandmama stayed through the relationship. But a lot of time, oh, I have to stay for the kids. But you can't pour from an empty cup. And you saying you have to stay for the kids, you're destroying your kids. Because again, it brings it to what we said prior in our last episode, that you're basically teaching your kids to normalize trauma, to normalize toxicity. And what you don't realize, by you staying for the kids, your kids, the paradigm is subconsciously being created where your kids are going to see this as normal. So you think you're doing your kids a favor, but you're actually destroying your generation. I'm done speaking.
No, man, you hit the nail on the head, man. And just to point out this point, because sometimes I coach people, and this is actually one of the points I made. If you stay for the kids, just know your bitterness, your anger and resentment is felt, seen, and probably you're going to act upon it to your kids. You're not about to save them. You're about to kill them emotionally. So, because like you said, you can only give what you have. Well, guess what? If you've been storing up anger, resentment, frustration, where is that going to? It's going to have an outlet. And this is what humans do, we call it displacement. Since you can't put it on the person who's really frustrating you, which is your partner right now, who you're not trying to divorce because you want to keep them, guess where it's going to? Someone who's defenseless and who can get all your anger, frustration. That goes on to your kids, right? So you don't want to be staying for the kids, because it will be for the kids that you are actually hurting them in the long run. This is, again, part of that conversation we're talking about, which is that delayed gratification. We don't want you to stay in these scenarios because actually it's doing us dirt. So, I mean, it's not pretty. I don't want to see a generation of women, especially being single and being with kids, but I really don't want you staying with your partner who's going to end up messing more kids up, which will actually further the generations down below you doing the same thing that's happened to you because we stayed in that situation. We don't want that. We want to teach them really good lessons that this is not the way to go, because we train up a child in the way to go and he will not depart from it. So let's train them in an effective manner going forward. But again, I mean, this is I mean, all of this, just looking at my notes even for, there was a part here which I don't know, because I think Tracy's been amazing this season. Absolutely on point. She has been direct. What's been beautiful is that she just takes one or two lines, bam, she hits it, that's it, it's finished. Like, she gets on
even
job.
The body language, the way she
drew it out
at them, and I was like, that is so excellent, because what she said about the dismissive body language, and you could see that she looked neglected, because his fiance, she now started to sit down like this, so you could see that not only did she feel neglected, she felt embarrassed. So her breaking that down was like, yeah, she's been amazing this season. I love it.
She's been hard. I was going to say there's one point that she said where I think, again, I think her name is Tiffany, Tiffany and Fred, I think they are, Tiffany and Fred. So Tiffany goes and says, this is not the first time, the second time, or the third time that he has said he's going to change. And I think, and I'm hoping maybe this is editing, that when Tracy was saying after, she said, you know, you've got to be, when someone opens up and says they're about to change, you've got to be open to that truth as to what they're saying. And I put in my notes, I disagree, because she made a premise that this is not the first, nor the second, nor the third time. If this was once or twice, I hear it, but we're now on the fourth go. And even the fourth one that he even said, we didn't really hear much change that was really going to be implemented in terms of actionable actions. So I don't want you to be open. I want you to be gone. But I guess maybe maybe Tracy's perspective was, well, if you're going to stay, then you need to be open and ready for this. Like, if you're going to stay, you have to be open for it. But you know, I can see that, you know, I was like, no, if this is the first, second, third, or fourth time, then Tiffany, you yourself must wake up. You don't realize you're actually saying your own truth. You're hearing yourself saying, not the first, not the second, not the third, but it's the fourth time. Then you need to be able to go, actually, I don't need to be here because you are not valuing me. And this is the fifth time that you've said this thing, and we're back here again at square one, where you're telling me you're going to change and you have one or two actionable things, and don't do it again. So yeah, I was hoping, you know, I felt for Tiffany towards the end. I actually started to cry. I'm not gonna lie to you. When she began to weep and break down, I started to cry. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that was my own space. I started crying for her, and I wiped away the tear, and I said, Tiffany, if you don't get the frick out of there, if you don't get the heck out of there, darling, you're gonna waste my tears. Come on, rise. What was your thoughts towards the end, Inspirational Guru?
You know, I'm glad you brought that part up again, because actually, it's like I missed that part. I saw it, but it's like I forgot about it. This is not the first time. It's been the first, second, third time he said he's going to change. The first time he failed to do it, that should have been your cue to leave. But again, it brings me back to what I said at the beginning, a common mistake that is made of thinking we can save somebody who can't even save themselves by trying to love the red flags of someone, which you cannot do. So again, accountability, we have to hold her accountability. So if you think if he said this 3 times, what makes you think he's going to do it within these 3 days? And why would you still let him put a ring on your finger without the action? So you know, what is it that you're holding on to? The love bombing that he did at the beginning, you're still holding on to that false hope that that mask he put on will come back on, because he's already shown you who he is. So what exactly are you expecting? Then again, I'm saying I sensed the fear of loneliness.
Come on.
Again, and the whole, again, this toxicity that's put out here. And this is where I have to go back to God, all right? Of where she, you know, if you're over a certain age, you're finished. You're not going to find somebody, men of good quality, or high value, as they call them, only want younger women. These are, and I call these the devil, the serpentine spirit, okay, which I've mentioned so many times before. The serpentine spirit, the lying spirit that has been put out there and subconsciously has been put in women's minds. And do you want me, should I get biblical again?
Go again.
All right, let me bring up another leading woman in scripture.
Approach the bar, sis.
Okay. Naomi was an older woman. And because of her, she planted the seed of faith for future generations through Obed. Obed is the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of who? King David. But the foundation started from her. Okay? This woman, Naomi, if you want to read about her in the book of Ruth, chapters 1-4. The story's there. And, you know, Naomi had a very hard life, but this is a woman who found her reason for living in her latter years. Okay? And her story, because of her, she built the seed of faith through Obed. And it says here, how could Naomi have known that Obed would be the ancestor of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, of course? How could she have known that Ruth, the daughter-in-law who refused to leave her, was placed by God in the family tree of Jesus, his son? How could this winter woman, elderly woman, have known that her legacy would outlive her by thousands of years? And it went on to say, stand against thoughts that whisper, you're too old for this. You're too old for this job. You're too old for this purpose. You're too old to be loved properly. Okay? God can do anything else with you. You're all used up and worn out. These are the lies we're seeing all over the social media to older women. You're all used up and worn out. Whoever you are, whatever your situation, do not give up. That is a lie from the enemy. You are never too old for God to use you. You are never too old to be used up for God's service. And you are never too old for God to align you with your purpose partner. But unfortunately, this belief of if I have kids and I lose value, if I'm over a certain age, I can never have a husband. So let me stay stuck in this situation. If I'm of a certain age and I have kids, I can't get a divorce. I have to stay in this toxic marriage because I'll never be able to find something. But that's the serpent. That's the serpent lying to you, just like he did to Eve. God didn't tell you that. He didn't tell you that. It's not in his word. It goes against God's love for us. So why are you listening to the serpent's spirit? And unfortunately, I can see she's trapped in that mindset, and that's why she's stuck. But I pray she breaks free soon.
Amen.
And she said at the end, I'm not ready to give up on him yet. You're not ready to give up on him yet, Queen, but you've given up on yourself because you don't want to give up on someone else. And that's more damaging. But I pray that she starts to not give up on herself, gives up on someone else so she can start to come to herself again. Women and men, never say that you don't want to give up on someone so much that you've given up on yourself.
I've been there, trust me.
Oh, so bad. Don't I know it? Don't we know it?
Don't we know it? It's a dark road, because it's a dark road. And I just want to just, it reminds me of a story in the Bible, because we're talking about, like you were saying earlier on, identity, knowing thyself, and sometimes not knowing our value. So the story in the Bible, Gideon, and there's a really interesting interaction that happens, because how Gideon describes himself is how I feel like a lot of us try to describe ourselves when we describe ourselves to other people, right? So the angel that comes to him says, Gideon, my friend, a man of valor. He's given him a great title. That's a man of strength, courage, somebody who knows how to fight. And he said, no, that's not me. How can you call me that when my clan is one of the small ones, and even within that clan we have the small families? Where I think we're going to tribe Manasseh, and we're one of the small ones. Even within that small clan, we're one of the small ones, and even that we're one of the last. You understand? How can you call me that? You know what I'm saying? And his whole identity of how he saw himself, or how he saw his value, right, was explained in just that one or two lines within that scripture of Judges 6, where the angel was speaking to him saying, my friend, no. Look, God sees you differently. You are seeing yourself from this out, almost from the outer in, but God is saying, no, I know what I deposited in you. So I need to draw that out. And I think a lot of us are almost stuck on the outer shell, not realizing, no, we need to draw from the inner and bring it out. Because that is where the core value lies, not in this outer shell, but within yourself. And so, yeah, I pray that this young lady will have that same revelation where it will be drawn out of her that, hey, I'm more than this moment. I'm more than this ring right now. I'm more than just wanting to be married, quote unquote, to be taken up and not feeling like I'm alone in this world, but rather will see her value and say, actually, this is not befitting of me. This is not befitting of what I see for my life as well. So last words, Inspirational Guru, and then we'll round up.
Oh yes, absolutely. Really, it's just, again, and I'll never stop seconding to this point. Go back to yourself. Self-discovery is key. Go back to yourself, and a very powerful prayer I want to leave with people, whether in relationships, purpose in the relationship end, and generally. I want you to pray a very powerful prayer I heard years ago, and I've been using it since. And I tell people, you need to say to God, and it's a very powerful self-discovery prayer and connection, intimate prayer. Say to God, help me see me the way you see me. What is it you know about me that I don't know about myself? And once you ask the question, God will begin to show you more of you, but more of him and more of God's plans for you rather than what you settled for. That's where your eyes will start to open, that you can't afford to settle for less. Because how God sees you is so much greater than what you've settled for. That's my last words. So pray that prayer, and that prayer will free somebody. And awaken somebody. Awakening.
Amen. 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 Sis, thank you again once more for that. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed our review on Family and Fiance. Another powerful review of the show. This is golden quality, man. This is not just this is golden quality stuff. So if you need to watch it again and catch them gems again, write notes, whatever you got to do what you got to do. Do you know what I'm saying? But we want to see people free. I want to see people healthy. And so from Inspirational Guru and myself, thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate your time for watching, and we will see you again next week when we talk about episode 7. All right. Much love and appreciation, guys. We will see you guys soon. Much love. Little Black Book, you know what time it is.